Hello, this is Ruslan Belov. Yesterday, Zelensky gave a speech and said, surprisingly, in case you didn't know, that the Chinese are already fighting on the side of the Russian army, and they even allegedly captured 2 Chinese soldiers. Well, when you're desperate for attention, you can come up with just about anything. At least he didn't say it was Martians. Because, what about the North Koreans? Are they out of the picture already? You don't hear much about them anymore. Now it's the Chinese. Anyway, let's get back to studying the frontline situation. Let's open the map. So, friends, today we have a lot of important topics, especially concerning the Sumy region. There, the defense line was breached, and Russian forces are de facto already on the outskirts of Unakivka. But we'll discuss that in the second half of the video, because it's a very serious topic that deserves focused attention. Be sure to watch the video until the end. For now, let's quickly go over the other movements that occurred on the front yesterday. We'll start with Kursk. There's not much news from there, really, since after the capture of Guayevo, a few days are needed to clear the area and secure the positions. Only after that can we expect further movement toward the village of Gornal. As for Oleshna, it's currently surrounded, but no major assault operations are being conducted at the moment. So the Ukrainian troops are just sitting there, recording tearful little videos, as we discussed yesterday. In the Belgorod direction, the situation remains the same. Demidovka and Popovka are under Russian armed forces control, and the fighting is strictly over forest lines. For example, yesterday they attempted to land infantry near a village. As a result, 3 drones hit the BMP, everything was burned to ashes, naturally including the infantry. Meanwhile, Zelensky was saying yesterday how powerful they are, since they're supposedly controlling something in the Belgorod region. Sure, controlling 2 tree lines while constantly losing dozens of soldiers to hold them, yeah, that must be really powerful. Moving on, there was significant advancement as usual in the Lyman direction. First of all, a video appeared showing the flag in Katerinivka, which confirms full control over the village, as I reported to you yesterday. And as you can see, the Americans have also marked the area red now. Moreover, the troops are already advancing from Katerinivka toward the next village, Retkodub. The advancement there is just over 1 kilometer. Plus, for the first time yesterday, they entered the outskirts of Novoe. As you can see, Novoe is the largest and most strategically important village in that sector. Heavy fighting is ongoing there now. Ukrainian analysts are in full panic mode. They admit things are going badly in that area. There was also an advance recorded near Toretsk, or rather from Toretsk itself. So the front is slowly moving away from the city. You can see here that the troops advanced about 1 kilometer. The overall direction here is, of course, toward Kostiantynivka. But first, the front line between the flanks needs to be straightened. The pocket will be cleared out, and only then, once Toretsk is safe from counterattacks, will the push forward continue. Now, let me briefly cover the Koma direction and the Zaporizhzhia region. After that, as promised, we'll move on to the Sumy region. On the Koma direction, or as some call it, the Novopavlivka direction, I want to highlight 2 things. First, there was an attempt yesterday by the Ukrainian armed forces to counterattack near the village of Rozliv. They moved out from Bohatyr in 2 armored vehicles. In the end, the vehicles were destroyed and the soldiers were left in the ground. Although I'm sure this won't be their last attempt. Of course, they'll keep trying to push out of Rozliv in order to delay the beginning of the battle for Bohatyr, but I don't think they'll succeed. And here's why. A significant number of Russian reserves have been pulled into this area, so all counterattacks are doomed to fail. The second point worth noting is the advance right here, directly toward Koma itself. Even the Ukrainian map acknowledges this, so fighting is about to begin for Fedorivka, which is the last line of defense before Koma, and that means the last line before the evacuation route for the Ukrainian garrison from Bohatyr and Otradne. In short, another encirclement is forming, and now to the Zaporizhzhia region. As expected, after these lines were taken, the battle for Kamyansky has begun. As you can see, the Ukrainian armed forces no longer have control over the left bank part of the village. Just a couple of days ago, they were still there and holding several positions. But realizing the situation was heating up, they fled. Thus, the left bank part of Kamyansky is now fully under Russian control. The final battle for the right bank part is about to begin. And after that, there will be an opportunity to move further towards Zaporizhzhia. Now, let's talk about the major developments in the Sumy region. So what happened here? After the loss of Basivka, the Ukrainian armed forces failed to establish a layered defense on the approaches to a key logistical hub in this sector. I'm referring, of course, to Unakivka. Yes, there is a defense line here. And I even remember people in the YouTube comments saying, "Your maximum potential," not mine personally, but meaning the Russian army's maximum potential for the whole of 2025, would be taking Unakivka at best. So how much time has passed since then? About a month. And now fighting is already de facto happening on the outskirts of Unakivka. From Basivka, the distance of 1.5 kilometers to Lochnia was crossed almost instantly. That's how far it is between those two villages. Despite several fortified positions in the area, the Ukrainian forces couldn't hold the line. They were simply pushed back. After that, Russian troops on quad bikes were able to enter Lochnia itself. Again, if Unakivka were considered a city, then Lochnia would be a suburb. In other words, these villages are seamlessly connected. Lochnia flows right into Unakivka. There's nothing that separates them physically. Therefore, the battle for Lochnia is essentially the beginning of the battle for Unakivka, even if, formally, that's not yet the case. Russian troops managed to enter Lochnia and reach the center of the village. That's where the Ukrainian armed forces were finally able to organize some defense. They brought in tanks and started shelling Russian positions at almost point-blank range. Unfortunately, there are casualties among the Russian troops, and one surviving soldier was taken prisoner. So, to summarize, the northern part of Lochnia is now fully under Russian control. The advance into the village currently stands at 500 meters, and fighting is ongoing for the village center. Capturing the entire village in one swift strike, as was clearly the plan, didn't succeed, but the result is still impressive. If we treat Unakivka and Lochnia as two separate settlements, then Russian troops are now only 2 kilometers away from Unakivka. Honestly, I didn't expect such rapid progress in the Sumy region, especially considering that no armored vehicles are being used. Just infantry on quad bikes. But as you can see, infantry on quad bikes can achieve a lot. And even though I previously said that fighting for Unakivka would begin around early June, it looks like it'll start much sooner. By early June, the question of Unakivka may already be resolved. The only question that remains is, what happens next? Will the army stop, or will it continue advancing? Keep in mind, from Unakivka to Sumy is not far, about 20 kilometers. Just a reminder, from Sverdlikov to Unakivka, the point where the offensive started, it was 11 kilometers. So in a month and a half, that distance has been covered by infantry alone. Naturally, if Unakivka is captured, heavier equipment will be brought in, and the offensive will continue with the support of armor, which will mean an even faster pace of advance. Like I said before, and I'll say it again, I believe this summer we'll see the battle for Sumy. A few words on politics. Our source reports that Trump is becoming increasingly irritated by Zelensky. That's according to the Telegram channel Legitimny. If this continues, Trump may go back on his promise to Zelensky not to touch his accumulated wealth if Zelensky agreed to US conditions. A large-scale political takedown of Zelensky could be starting soon. More than 70 countries have approached Trump to begin talks on easing tariffs, said US Treasury Secretary Besson. So April, May, and possibly June will be very eventful, he told Fox Business in an interview. Specifically, the EU offered to establish mutual zero tariffs on industrial goods, but the US president rejected the idea, telling reporters it wasn't enough. He suggested EU countries instead increase their energy imports from the US in an amount equivalent to the current US-EU trade imbalance. Meanwhile, Germany is facing a third consecutive year of recession, as Trump's tariffs hit exports hard. The country holds a record surplus in trade with the US, 70 billion euros, and has become the biggest European victim of the tariff war. Germany's industrial output unexpectedly dropped another 1.3% in February. The German Ministry of Finance forecasts a 15% drop in exports due to Trump's new tariffs. That's all from me for today. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and stay connected.